this was a little bit later in my career, I guess 40s at some point. I was required to create a communications plan, for quite a big deal. It was actually a company restructure, and it was a fairly large, a very large unit. And we at the time did not need or want or had time to bring in an external expert for it. So it was very daunting, indeed. So again, this is when I kind of learned about how to go about it, and actually there wasn't a lot available at that time that I could find that was really directly about how to do this kind of thing. But I did know a lot because of my market research, marketing career, about advertising, planning advertising campaigns. So I used that a bit of as a starting point. And actually, it turns out I think there are a lot of parallels indeed. Not surprisingly, because you're communicating to sets of people, effectively. But so anyway, let me take you through, and this is again one of my absolute favourites. Now, it's one of those frameworks where you kind of have to really stick to the rules. You have to go through the process, and in this case, going from top to bottom, and you have to do each row, before you go on to the row below. But you absolutely start with who do we need to influence? Who do we need to communicate to and influence who? And in terms of who, as in that case, obviously you've got very different types of who. You have sort of people who own the company above you that you'll need to engage with about your plans. You'll have people at your kind of manager level who will need to do a lot of the rolling out of the plans, and then you'll have end employees who are going to be affected as well. So lots of different types of sub-audience. So start with that, and you make sure you're clear on those audiences first. Then you go on to, okay, what do we actually want for each audience separately to start with anyway, what do you actually want them to do? And I find that often this is skipped when people are thinking about a communications plan. They skip, in fact, they go straight from who, sometimes, or not even who, but they skip straight to what are we going to show them down at the bottom somewhere. Anyway, but if you go through the do level and then okay, in order for them to do that, what do you think? What do we think they need to think and feel, and what do they need to know? And I found if you just spend time on the who, the do, think, and feel until it is crystal clear before you do the rest of it below, you will end up with a much, much more effective communications plan. And it's actually quite hard to do. I find in meetings, you have to be, the chair has to be very strict and say, no, hang on, can we not jump ahead to the C and here yet? Can we still focus on the do and, whatever level you're on? Does that make sense to you, Rahul?
Yeah. No, so this is quite interesting. Tell me, what was the actual implementation process like? Like, if you could just elaborate a little bit, like, was it working with a team, and what was the complexity that you were trying to exactly resolve? What kind of challenges were you facing?
Yeah, so this was a company restructure. So this was like changing people's the units that existed, and therefore who the leaders were of those units. Who the people were who weren't going to be leaders, and what will they be going to do? Will they be leaving the company or not? There was also different ways of working. So actual approaching some roles changed. Certain roles were changed, certain roles were new, certain roles disappeared. It was a big deal. So there was an awful lot of different complex strands to what needed to be said and shown to who, and in what order. So although this is your first cut, this in the middle of the slide, and then you go, okay, what do we therefore, what do they need to see? What do we need to tell them here? What do they need to experience? Sometimes you need to kind of demo something, get people to try something before they believe it and feel it, hands-on experience, etc. Then you get, once you've got that, then you go, okay, well, how are we going to do this? Who's going to be preparing that kind of communication, when and where? And so I've included also a process and a template, that's what's in the bottom right as a reminder, to help you actually figure out the time plan, the order in which things need to happen, whether or not certain communications will work for actually more than one audience, etc., etc. There's quite a lot of detail actually in the book about going from the thinking about the kind of high level messaging and motivations, which is on the left, and then the detailed kind of rollout plan on the right.
Makes sense.